Yo guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about Sean Monahan and Matthew Tkachuk and two blockbuster trades that could potentially be coming pretty soon to the Calgary Flames. Now, Sean Monahan's been a big player. We've been talking about in trade rumors for a very long time, especially these past few weeks as a guy that could be traded this offseason to a contending team that wants that big top six center. But now we have Matthew Tkachuk in trade rumors, who just like Sean Monahan has his future in question with the Calgary Flames. So what is going on with both of these great top six forwards? What are the latest trade rumors and news on these guys? And could we actually see a trade with both of these players in the next little bit? Watch till the end for all of the trade rumors and all of the news, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. 60% of the people watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, if you like trade rumor content, this channel is the place to be. Now, a ton of the rumors and a ton of the news that I'm sharing with you guys in today's video is actually from Hailey Salvian of The Athletic, who got just an amazing article a couple of days back, basically answering a ton of Calgary Flames fans' questions about the leadership in Calgary, the futures of guys like Sean Monahan, Matthew Tkachuk, and the rest of the team, and what Calgary's future is really looking like going forward. And there was a ton of info here, so watch till the end for every single piece of it. But we are going to start out today with the whole question that was posed to Hailey Salvian, which she answered in a ton of great ways, and again gives us a ton of info on specifically Sean Monahan and a lot on Matthew Tkachuk. And she was asked, with Giordano now being to Seattle and that captaincy being vacant, if we would see Calgary name a new captain, who would that be, and what are the futures of different players like Sean Monahan and like Matthew Tkachuk, who both of those guys could end up being captains potentially in Calgary. Now, she said this when it comes to Sean Monahan and his future with the Calgary Flames. Sean Monahan would be the longest tenured member of the official leadership group, having been an official or an alternate since 2015-2016. But as pointed out, his time in Calgary could be limited, as he's frequently mentioned in trade talks or trade speculation. Even if he stays, he only has 2 years remaining on his deal, and I would be surprised if he re-signed in Calgary. Now, there is a ton there that we can really sink our teeth into. First things first, and the biggest story from that quote is that Sean Monahan likely will not stay a Calgary Flame, likely won't re-sign with Calgary after those 2 years are done. And even though it is 2 years ahead of time, I think that could maybe potentially lead to a trade sooner than a lot of people expect. Obviously, Sean Monahan has been in trade rumors for quite a while, really in the past year, and it wouldn't be surprising if Calgary traded him this offseason, but we pretty much know now officially that Calgary likely won't re-sign him at the very least. And especially if Calgary's not a contending team in the next couple of years, they would have a lot of momentum and a lot of reason to just end up trading him to a different team, trying to get as much value as possible, because again, it seems like Sean Monahan's stake and his future in Calgary is rather dim. It doesn't seem like there's much there and much future in him with the Calgary Flames. And although Calgary might still keep him for those next 2 years, he might just become a free agent and might be a guy that Calgary just ends up leaving from. So especially in the captaincy talk, Sean Monahan, it seems like, is a very unlikely bet. And again, still is a guy that I think personally Calgary should move on from. I mean, if I was the Calgary Flames right now, we're talking about this whole trade rumor thing. If I was the Calgary Flames right now, I would rebuild. I know why Brad Treliving is not doing it, because he would get absolutely fired, because this is the team that he's built and it's terrible. But I think for Calgary, with the current situation, if they rebuilt now and were able to get into some strong 2022 and 2023 drafts, that would be just so exceptional for a franchise that needs badly some real star power. Even though it might not be a Matthew Tkachuk, Sean Monahan, to me, is a guy that I would trade, especially after 2019. That was when his value was the peak, and Calgary had a great chance to do so. Now his value is almost as low as it's ever been, and it just doesn't seem like Calgary's going to get much back for him, which I think is a reason why we haven't seen a trade yet, is because Calgary is kind of waiting patiently maybe for Monahan to have another maybe a rebound year. I don't really see that happening either for Calgary though, and I see the situation just getting worse and worse as the months go by. We have seen Calgary try to remedy that situation. Hailey Salvian mentions in this same article that Christian Dvorak could be an option for them and could be a guy they end up going after if Jack Eichel doesn't work out, which I think would be perfect. I think Christian Dvorak would be a much better second-line center for the Calgary Flames, would provide much better physical and defensive play, and would pretty much be their perfect second-line center, while Elias Lindholm could do all the offensive production things that Elias Lindholm can do best. That, to me, would be absolutely perfect for the Calgary Flames. But it doesn't seem like it's think they're going to make that deal? When have they made a deal like that in this current core to actually do something like that? Besides Mark Giordano, obviously leaving out their captain and exposing the expansion draft takes quite a bit of a courage, let's say. But at the same time, it just doesn't seem like they're that willing to get rid of Sean Monahan unless it's for a great price. And again, even though Christian Dvorak I think would be perfect, I just don't have faith in Calgary turning over the page enough to make that happen. To me, with Calgary, they should have retooled a long time ago, pretty much right after 2019, and they haven't done it since. I think if Sean Monahan was going to get traded, it would have happened already, and I'm kind of just ticking down the days until he becomes a free agent. Because honestly, at this point, it just doesn't seem like either party wants to have this situation, but not Sean Monahan nor the management wants to do anything about it, which honestly, quite frankly, for Calgary, sucks a lot. They could be a great team in this specific division, but to me personally, I think they're missing the playoffs. And I think Sean Monahan being there and being a big part of that team is a big reason why. And we'll obviously get into the Matthew Tkachuk thing in a second, but I do want to say that it feels like we have these same old problems with the Calgary Flames year in and year out. It's the lack of a great center core. It's the lack of a true fantastic defense. It's a lack of consistent goaltending. And they try to remedy that, obviously, with Jacob Markstrom, and I think that might be maybe a strength for them next season if Markstrom rebounds. But at the same time, just the whole makeup of the team just looks absolutely lost right now. And again, I think with Calgary, they've been basically in the past 10 years, besides 2019, the definition of mediocrity. And I do not see that changing this next season. Once again with Calgary, they won't be good enough to make the playoffs, but they won't be bad enough to get a top 5 pick. And I think that's the worst fate for any NHL team, especially with Calgary having, and with this 2022 draft having so much potential. Calgary is missing out on pretty much everything right now. And then we can move on to the Matthew Tkachuk situation, which I think is super fascinating. Now, Haley Salvian had a fantastic quote on Matthew Tkachuk, his future in Calgary, and what we could potentially see maybe with a new contract or potential trade. Now, Matthew Tkachuk has been an interesting part of the Flames the past year. If you don't remember, guys, back last year, I think early in the season, there was the Calgary Flames and Maple Leafs game where I think Matthew Tkachuk and Jake Muzzin, I can't remember the exact details, but they were fighting, they were getting at it, and it seemed like the Calgary Flames teammates didn't really care too much, weren't really on Matthew Tkachuk's side too much, and that was a very interesting fallout of that whole situation. And we did hear a little bit of news and a little bit of rumors that the team really wasn't on board with what Matthew Tkachuk was doing, the ruggedness and the on-edge play that he was creating, and the team wasn't really on board with it. They weren't really with him where he was going, and I thought that was super interesting. And especially if Matthew Tkachuk's going to be the next captain to Calgary, that doesn't really make sense to me, how you'd have a whole room disconnected from your captain in that way. So for me, there's a lot that's already brewing with Matthew Tkachuk, but again, going to this Haley Salvian article, there was a lot that she said. Now, she said this mostly: Tkachuk's situation is tricky. Named an alternate with Backlund 3 years ago, he'd previously been considered to be the Flames' next captain, but he is 1 year away from being a restricted free agent. With some questions about his long-term future with the team, will he take his qualifying offer or take the Flames to arbitration next year, essentially forcing a trade or walking to free agency? And this is cryptic, because with Matthew Tkachuk, again, when we're talking about the whole locker room situation, it doesn't seem like the team is on board with all his antics, with all his shenanigans. And if he's going to be the next captain, you also have the contract situation on top of that. He does make $7 million this next year, and then he is an RFA who maybe could get offer sheeted, could get traded, could go to arbitration. There is a ton of different ways that this could end up going. To me, that'll be interesting. And again, for Calgary, who has some cap problems potentially, I don't know if they're willing to go with a huge deal with Matthew Tkachuk. And again, I don't think they're going to be able to sign him long term to what they would want to get him at. I don't think it'll be a 7 or 8 year deal. It'd probably be a lot lesser than that. So the situation becomes a lot more unclear and a lot more interesting heading into next year. Now, a situation this is kind of reminding me of, and I'm sorry for Flames fans because it didn't really end up too well for the Rangers, but a situation I'm kind of remembering here over the past few weeks that's kind of similar is the Pavel Buchnevich situation, where it seemed like, yes, the Rangers definitely valued Pavel Buchnevich a ton, but that contract situation, they just didn't see eye to eye, and it didn't seem like either team wanted the same amount of money or the same amount of team or a term. Either side did not want to come to an agreement. They went to, or they were going to go to arbitration, but they ended up settling with a trade, and the Rangers got some sort of value back, even though it definitely wasn't the value that Pavel Buchnevich should have gotten. To me, that's kind of what I feel like this Matthew Tkachuk situation is going to go to. Maybe not that much of a drastic change. We might not see a trade initially, but I think when it comes to Calgary, this is a situation that is going to get pretty ugly, especially if they can't agree to a contract during the season. To me, that'll be definitely a telling sign. If they can find a way to get a contract done this offseason or during the season, then obviously the situation, I think, looks a lot better for Calgary. But if he goes to the offseason and is still an RFA, I think that's a bad sign for the Calgary Flames. And again, Matthew Tkachuk could be another guy that wants out, that is in trade rumors, that could potentially be gone. If I was Calgary and I knew I couldn't re-sign Matthew Tkachuk, I would trade him this offseason and get an absolute haul for him, which it seems like that he might be able to do. He is, again, a rare commodity in the NHL. He's the Tom Wilson type that gets under your skin and can also back that play off of play with amazing results. And to me, he would be heavily valued across the league. And I think also when it comes to Matthew Tkachuk, he knows how valuable he truly is. And even though there might be some cockiness there, obviously he's quite a confident kid by the way you could tell he plays. At the same time, is he really too wrong? I mean, Tom Wilson and all these different guys that play the game in that style, they're heavily valued and they're going to get some big money over these next few years. Tom Wilson's contract honestly looked like a little bit of a bargain compared to what he could get on the open market, but I think Matthew Tkachuk really knows what his value is, and I think he's asking for a lot more than $7 million, I must say. It's probably in the $9 to maybe even $10 million range. I think honestly he could be asking for that, and if you're Calgary, obviously it wouldn't be the best financial decision to get him for $10 million, but at the same time, it seems like, again, with Matthew Tkachuk, that's the type of player and that's the type of presence that you pay to keep. And for me, with Calgary, especially looking into this next year, I mean, without Milan Lucic, really, they don't have too much sandpaper besides Matthew Tkachuk. And to me, he brings something that a lot of the Calgary Flames don't really have. To me, he is one of their most valuable players, if not their most valuable player. And again, is one of their best young players they've had in a very long time. It's really a sad situation, but again, I think both of these guys could end up being traded, both Sean Monahan and Matthew Tkachuk, if both things go wrong. But I think especially with Matthew Tkachuk, the potential trade could be super interesting. With Sean Monahan, Calgary doesn't get that much really back for him, I don't think, and that could be a reason why they haven't traded him. But with Matthew Tkachuk and being an RFA, having some protection there, I think Matthew Tkachuk will get an absolute haul. And if you're going to start a rebuild, if you're going to actually do something, Matthew Tkachuk wouldn't be a bad place to start off. He would get some crazy picks back and would definitely be one of the biggest trades we see in the next couple of years. But just an interesting situation to keep an eye on, and I think this one, again, could boil over a lot into this next season and potentially this next NHL trade deadline. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and the notification bell for more trade rumor and hockey content just like this. Make sure you comment down below what do you think about the trade rumors with Matthew Tkachuk and Sean Monahan. Where do you see these guys being traded? Where do you want to see them being traded? Would your favorite team end up trading for them? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card for all my trade rumor content right on one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.